What is up, Shark Nation? We are back. We are back in Greystone Studios today. We're talking to Mark Baker. It's Luke and Mark riffing again. The boys are back in town. Mark Baker, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. I tell you what, I'm a little bit disappointed though.
Because of Iron Man?
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, I got an email from the guys over at Iron Man at Nice, and they were saying that, Luke, we're good to go. These are all the things that we're put in place for all of the social distancing, stuff like that. And so I went ahead and bought a flight against a lot of, social pressure, that I put on myself more than anything. But, there's a lot of pandemic stuff. And France is having a bad time, apparently, with the COVID stuff. But then on the other hand, I said I was going to do it. I actually booked this at the very beginning of the whole lockdown thing. So I knew this was a possibility. That's what I was saying. So I'd already made that kind of decision. I was going to go do that. But then I got an email on Friday saying that because of the mayor or something in Nice have withdrawn the support for the race, that they're going to cancel it and just book me in for 2021 Ironman. So that was Friday night. So on Friday night, I went out to an Indian restaurant and hit the naan bread hard. Been a shit show since then. A little bit with the diet and stuff like that, just because it's been 4 months of really hard training for this. So I was a little bit.
What was the date it was supposed to be?
It's supposed to be the 13th of September. So there's a couple of options. One, I still got my ticket. I can go do the route in Nice and stuff like that. But now the reward isn't there for the risk that I'm taking. Bringing back whatever.
Yeah.
Take.
Is there a route in Dublin that you can do?
Yeah. So I could do the Dunleary one because that's a mapped out route. That just didn't happen to be going on this year, but I could do that there on the 13th of September. And I think that's what I'll do anyway. We'll call it Sharkman 70.3, Greystones edition.
I like that. You should put that out to people if they want to do it.
Because how many people?
I don't know if you're going to be allowed now, encouraging people to gather together, but you could do it in in different heats, 6 people at a time or something.
Yeah, we're all outside in the sea. It should be okay.
Yeah.
But then, so anyway, so that's so we're still, whatever happens, I still think I'm going to go and do the distances and stuff like that, because
I think you should, because it's something you have to be match fit for, and then if you're going to do it next year, you might as well have not done anything this year, really.
100%. Oh, I'm just going to get this note taker out of there. Sometimes HubSpot adds that to my Zoom call. Anyway, so that's that. It's okay. I'm not going to let it get me down too much. I'm going to continue the training. And then on the 13th of September, given the weather, maybe the Irish Sea is a little bit more unpredictable than the Mediterranean. So we'll have to find a good tide to do it on. But we're going to figure that out. It's going to be called the Sharkman. T-shirts will be available for any of the participants. There will be spot prizes on the day. I'm just making this up. I don't know if there will be.
So what have you learned then from training for it?
Okay, this is actually, I know this is off topic because we've got a really great topic to talk about today, but what I've learned is, one, it's easier than you would imagine in some ways.
A lot of people aren't going to like that, Luke.
It's easier than, because there's no one's on defense. There's no one stopping you from running except yourself. You just got to commit to it.
Okay, and you're used to competitive sport with basketball, kickboxing, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I've played sports a lot, and I've never got too far out of shape. I don't think I go to the gym 3 times a week, kind of generally anyway. So I wasn't starting from scratch. But once you push by, if you do it in a smart way, it can be easier than you think. I think the biggest thing that puts off people for those kind of long triathlons is the swimming, right? Mm-hmm. So like I said before, I can't recommend the book by Terry Laughlin, Total Immersion, enough. It just changed the way, I couldn't believe nothing has ever been more effective except for maybe a Brillo pad on a dirty pot. Do you know what I mean? It really works,
Yeah.
So when I say it's easier than I thought, I think that getting it into a really high level of fitness, if you just plan it out enough and have plenty of rest, good nutrition, and live in a place where you live beside the beach and mountains to try and you know, in the perfect position, and also having a seasoned Ironman coach that lives just up the road as well. You know, keep me honest, Alex, up there in Bray. So, like I said, I think I wouldn't say maybe anyone can do it, but I would say that most people would be able to do it if they put their mind to it. So that's some positive stuff there. Once you get by the sore shins at the beginning when you start running, the rest is fine. You know, so it's and also here's something that I learned, and I knew this in principle, but cardio exercise doesn't do anything for weight.
Okay.
During the training, I've cycled, I don't know, a couple of 1,000 kilometers, ran hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, swam like tens of kilometers. And because of, you have to eat quite a lot when you're doing those long rides, that 4 hours, 5 hour cycles. Some people listen to this will be like, yeah, he said it's easy. It's like going for 4 hour cycles and stuff. But my point is that it's hard to, it doesn't equal being really, really ripped from that. It's got to be diet. So like, I think my body composition was probably better when you just lift weights and had a really kind of a strict diet.
Okay, interesting.
Is that interesting?
Yeah, well, that kind of falls into the whole minimum input, maximum output theme of the podcast.
Absolutely. It's a lovely little segue. Mark, we are reviewing or just kind of like breaking down one of our favorite books of the past, I guess 20 years, because this was out 13, 14 years ago. 4 Hour Work Week by our main man, Timothy Ferriss. This book, like a lot of people, I think when you read the first couple of chapters, you're like, I don't like this guy, Tim. That's the way he used to write. It's very like I'm great, this type of thing. But this book is we were talking about before we went on air here. It is like still a Bible for anyone who wants to have the lifestyle design. That's actually why our podcast is business and lifestyle design, because this book just gives you so many signposts into what you should be thinking about if you're interested in designing a life, which everyone should be, rather than just trying to get by, right? So I think you bought me this book after reading it. When was that 2011 or something?
Probably 2011 or 12. Yeah, I'd say so. Any book that I get that I think is good, I pretty much buy you it for your birthday or for Christmas.
Yeah.
And we often get each other the same book.
Yeah, which is great. Usually if whatever Tim Ferriss book is out at that time, we usually kind of just like exchange those. But I love the way he writes. It writes in a very how-to way. So just gives the guys some context out there. Tim Ferriss is a guy who's written 4 Hour Body, 4 Hour Chef, 4 Hour 4 Hour Work Week, as well as Tools of Titans. A lot of those kind of books of trying to make your life better or more enjoyable, at least.
Really practical though.
Yeah, really practical. It's kind of like a Tim Ferriss without the energy. Or sorry,
he is Tim Ferriss. What do you mean?
I mean, sorry, Tony Robbins. He's Tony Robbins without walking on coals and stuff.
Yeah,
he gets you going.
Yeah,
but
if you can have a mix of those two guys, it's they're both kind of good for you in different ways. Tony's more motivation.
Yeah, exactly. So Tim, just to give a brief summary about how he kind of came into the type of lifestyle that he describes in the 4 Hour Work Week. He was a Princeton grad. It's an Ivy League school in America, obviously. A very high achiever, very stressed out. Wanted to be the best at everything. Started a supplements company. Was working whatever 80, 90 hours a week. I know they all say that. I don't know how these guys can actually do that, but working every hour that got sent, built quite a good business that was cash flowing. I think I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it's kind of like 20 grand a month or something. And, you know, a lot of early people in their early 20s, that's, you know, very good. So, but he found himself having nervous breakdown type feelings. His partner leaves him because he works too much, leaves him a note, tells him that. Then he takes a break, travels for 2 months. It turns into 2 years, kind of mini retirement. Sets up his business to run completely on autopilot. Figures out this kind of lifestyle where he's got what he calls a muse, which is a a source of almost passive income where he only has to work a few hours a week to achieve everything that he wants from a financial point of view. And then he basically tries to fill the void with learning interesting things, doing exciting activities. So one of the most important things, or one of the interesting things about Tim Ferriss when he talks about this, is how weird it is when everyone's at work and you've figured out a way that you don't have to work anymore. And he talks about putting things in the calendar that are going to be exciting, maybe climbing mountains or going to do something, and that kind of keeps you focused and stuff like that. So we'll get to that in the end. But so, like, Mark, what was when you read this? Did this really speak to you? I know we both work a lot more than 4 hours, so maybe you might say a few words about the book.
Yeah, well, I think it's more. I treated it more like a menu that you could dip in and out of and take from, just like the 4-hour body, the 4-hour chef. So whereas I don't necessarily looking for, and nobody, well, some people are looking for the 4-hour work week, but that's quite hard to achieve. I was trying to fit more things that I wanted to do into my day. So in a way to kind of create it kind of touches on 3 things. So it's like, the book wouldn't exist and the method wouldn't exist without technology. So the book wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the internet, and the internet has changed since that drastically. Secondly, it's management, time management, automation, all that kind of stuff. And then thirdly is kind of the big kind of life questions. You know, why are we doing this? What do you really want to do? You know, kind of those tough questions to ask yourself, and it digs right into them. And it's saying, be honest. It says that a number of times, be honest with yourself or it won't work. You know, and people aren't honest with themselves, and I'm guilty of it. I'll work all day to cover off, you know, the 4 hours that I probably should have done that, just to be sure that those 4 hours are done, I'll work 10.
Yeah.
But that's because I didn't address the tough questions, and I didn't make the tough phone calls. So I stretched it all out to make myself seem busy, and actually to make myself seem more content at the end of the day. But then you're more drained, and in the long run, you're not actually doing cool things. You've no time to spend with the most important things, which is family, which is, you know, travel, things that make you happy. Yeah. So yeah, again, we like books that are anything that kind of reinforces what we already believe.
100%.
So this was kind of touching a lot on that, but then it was also a lot of challenging things in it. Again, that you'd be tempted not to do, you know, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, you know, staring at people too long, things like that, just to practice discomfort.
Yeah, one of his
so much in it though.
One of the things that you're just talking about there is his. I don't know. I don't actually think it was a quote by him, but it's in the book. It's about you can measure someone's success by the amount of awkward conversations they're willing to have. You know. Being like wanting people to like you all the time or complying all the time is the easiest thing to do, right? So this is kind of going against
what seems natural.
Yeah, I think it was he quotes Mark Twain in there as well. Something like, whenever the majority have an opinion, it's time to stop and reflect. You know, I was saying, like, you know, if everyone thinks something is the way it is, might be time to have a look at that. So I've always been a kind of contrarian anyway. So this book, again, kind of talks to that for me, but I kind of really got into it when I was working in the investment bank and wasn't very happy. And I was really the target, I think, for this type of book. I think we've talked about this lots of times before, how I took the book and I like the idea of the mini retirement. So I just quit my job and did that. But if I had a muse with some income that was coming in, I could have stayed on the road longer if I wanted to, instead of having to really, you know, be under pressure when I arrived in Canada to get a job doing anything. Well, I'm not anything, but almost. Let me tell you, I thought about it. Anyway, so taking some risk out there. Okay, so it's one of the books. So I was listening to the guy, Seth Godin. Know him? He's the marketing guy. And he talks about how he reads books really quickly because you only have to read a couple of chapters to get the joke for a business book. And the rest is them just kind of driving it home. But But I don't think that this is one of those books. Every chapter you get something out of it. It's not something that you can just, like you said, it's more of a menu. You got to dive into it. It's centered. So let's actually get into the book.
Yeah, but if like there is, people are going to take it differently. They'll take different things from it. Like you would have taken different things than me from it. It's like, it's kind of like the other we say it's the encyclopedia of kind of entrepreneurship that we've had, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger encyclopedia bodybuilding would be the equivalent Bible, but nobody's really gonna ever realistically be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they're gonna take things from it.
100%.
Yeah,
and I think you'd probably have a good chance if you wanted to, especially nowadays, if you have the right mindset. And we talked about this before the podcast as well. Is like a lot of this, like one of the chapters in here is about trying to negotiate working remotely. Like now you don't even have to do that. There's no excuse now to have that more free time to work on something for income.
Yeah, I think at the time when it first came out, it had a lot of naysayers who would just be like laughing at it, saying that's not possible. But now with actual hindsight, you can actually see so many people, like quite famous people, say that they were inspired by that book. Loads of people who actually implemented things and went on to big things. I remember when I had it on my desk once when I worked in a kind of a banking sector, and you get all types of people, but look, you're working full time in a bank essentially, and an old fellow walked by, and he was nearly retired, like, and he just maybe about 8 years away from retirement, he just looked at it and goes, ha, yeah, right, as in like 4-hour work week. I've heard of that. Yeah, right. I was like, not really the right kind of person to be listening to.
Exactly. He couldn't, and also there's a cognitive dissonance there that he's been working 60 hours a week for his whole life. He can't accept that that's a possibility.
He'd have to admit to himself that he wanted that, and then that he didn't do it, and then that he's failed in a way. So of course he's gonna kind of roll his eyes at it.
Absolutely. So the book is actually it's it does something that he doesn't do a lot. Well, actually, no, it does in some of his books, but he's kind of gone away from this type of writing. But it's centered around an acronym, the different sections of the book, DEAL, deal, which the book Golden Apples really put me off. That's the Bill Bill Cullen's autobiography, and it says Golden Apples, and that's every chapter is a part of the acronym. He ruined that for me, so I felt like he was really clutching at straws for that double P. Anyway, so my point is, I'm not sure about that, but the first one is about definition. This is something that people, I know we talked about like career guidance, all that type of stuff, but people are not defining what type of life they want to have. They are clutching from that one job to the next. Just opportunities are coming to them. They're just kind of, there's no plan there. There's no definition of what they really want. And I watched this video on valuetainment. I've told you about this guy before, but you haven't seen him.
No.
I think he's worth it just goes to show you America is the place to be. But I think he's an Iranian immigrant that grew up in New York. He's worth over 100 million now, apparently. You wouldn't think it. I'll just put it like that. His name is Patrick Bet-David. Actually, sometimes his videos, some of them are good, but he was saying he had a video up saying your next 15 moves.
Wow.
He said he talked to some chess master or something, and he was like, I'm always thinking, I'm thinking 15 moves ahead. And
that's too many. That's too many things.
You're calling it too many.
Yeah, that's too many things.
Listen, I know. Well, you haven't watched the video, so
yeah. Well, he has 100 million apparently. So
yeah, exactly. So my point is that that's really defining what we want to do and all the steps you need to do to get there. So, like for me, defining what you want to do. Like I said this to Mark before the episode started. I had a vision of the house that I wanted to buy when I was 20 or something, and the house that I bought 10 years, took about 10 years, was almost exactly what I had pictured in my mind. Weirdly so. Very much made it into reality, in the color of it. So defining that and working towards something is the most important thing. I think we like in the book he goes into how to define it by kind of the negativity. So he goes into fear setting. Did you ever see? He actually has a TED talk on fear setting that I'd recommend. Did you ever see that one, Mark?
Maybe I did a while ago. I'm not sure.
He basically he wants you to think about what. So everyone, I would say not everyone, but most people have some move they want to make.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to somebody in one of the places where I worked before. I won't say which place, but he didn't really like his job, and he was saying, "I just wish I could make moves. I can't make moves." Like he wants to.
In what direction? He doesn't know what.
Business, get fit. He's not making any moves. Like
And what was stopping him?
I don't know. He just. My point is, it was obviously fear that was stopping him.
Yeah.
So in fear setting in the book, Tim goes into how to think about what would happen if you took the move that you want. So say if you have a good paying job but you don't like it, you want to move to Argentina to learn how to tango, which he does in the book. And he goes to like the world championships and stuff like that. But if you want to move to Argentina for 6 months and quit your job, what would actually happen? And really be honest about how that would impact you financially. How would that impact your career? Would you be able to pick up where you left off? Would there be another job that's very similar to yours that you come back and you'd have a kind of a cool story to tell if things didn't work out?
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really powerful. It's something that you can even do like a 5-year regression thing. So if I do this in 5 years and it works out, I'll be here. If I do it for 5 years and it doesn't work out, I'll be here. Can I come back? Can I make a side move? All those types of things. Something that people aren't really thinking when they're defining that. So it's kind of like defining the downside as well as the positive.
And people will find that the downside is nowhere near as much as what they think it is in the back of their head when they actually think, what's the worst that can happen?
It's people. Why do you think people get so stressed out about things that aren't, that important? It's not about, obviously, about family sake.
It's the unknown. Fear of the unknown is way worse than fear of the actual.
So is it kind of risk aversion? Would that be into that?
I think defining what the worst case scenario is, and then how to mitigate that to actually, again, we talked about it before, to make the leap not as big as it might be. Like when I was in that bank that I was talking about, I had the option. I went looking for accounting jobs, and then I met with recruiters who said I'd be good at recruitment. Did I ever think about that? And it kind of ticked a lot of boxes for me. And I was like, well, this is a big move. It's like we spoke with Connor Sheridan. Like he went from Davy to being an entrepreneur, something completely different. In restaurant business, completely different. The move is if you don't make that, you have to go back with your tail between your legs. How hard is that going to be? Is it going to look strange in your CV? You're going to have to explain that for every finance job you want to go back into. So to mitigate that, I made sure that the salary was going to be okay, and I put enough research into it that I was actually felt that I was going to be like, I did like a 50-page analysis of the whole recruitment industry and who's who and how I could improve all the website, like crazy. When I look back at it, like it's still usable today, and I'd never even done it. So that's helping mitigate the risk. I also was earning money with the art, so I kind of upped my game with that. Was doing more paintings, promoting the stuff more, so I had that to fall back on. I wouldn't go too hungry if it didn't work out, stuff like that. And then I made the jump, and then 4 years later set up my own recruitment company, which is what I wanted to do anyway from the start, work for myself.
And that's exactly with the fear setting, and that's actually one of the steps as well, where you're just mitigating the risk. You did everything you could to figure that out beforehand. And like the great thing about being an accountant, you're always an accountant, whatever happens. Like,
well, that's the whole reason I went into accountancy anyway, was because it's a solid career and you'll always have it. and the skill sets that you learn obviously are good.
It's yeah, exactly. And then the next, after fear setting, that he goes into something called dreamlining rather. This is something that I really, really enjoyed. It's something that I've done several times throughout the last 10 years. And I like it because it's very actionable. It's a way of setting goals for 6 months and 12 months. So 6 months is actionable. That's something that's on the horizon. You better get ready for, and the 12 months one, takes a little bit more time, but at least it's measurable, and it's in the future that you can see. Sometimes when people say, where do you going to want to be in 5 years? It's kind of like the 15 moves that we were talking about earlier. It's hard to know what life will be like in 5 years. So the 6 months, he kind of breaks it down into not just financial goals, but also like the idea behind dreamlining is just figure out how much money you need to do that. And you always be surprised at how little money you actually need to live the life that you want to live. So
what are some examples of dreams?
So if we're talking about dreams here, Mark, we can go to page 60 here. So the way he breaks it down is what you want to what you want to have, what you want to be, and what you want to do. So they're the three kind of areas that he wants to go into. So having, that might be in the book, he gives an example of an Aston Martin. Being flexible, being fluent in Greek, etc. Doing, sell a TV show, visit Croatian coast, all this type of stuff, right? That he has in here for his stuff, and it gives you kind of a target monthly income that you should be looking to generate. And the idea here is that a lot of these things cost less than you think they would. So like Aston Martin a month is 2,000. A trip to the Croatian coast, $514. Like really, these are things that people say they'd love to do. This actually puts it into a context and say, okay, this is how you have to afford it. He builds in an extra 30% for like expenses and stuff that you wouldn't know, but it allows you to say, these are the things that you want to do for the next 6 months. So it's going to cost. So now to have your perfect life for the next 6 months, or in 6 months, you're gonna have to figure out a way to generate X amount of dollars to be able to do that. Which is, kind of, like I said, in school, they don't teach this shit in schools. Like, they're not telling you about what do you want to do in the next 6 months, and that's it, because that's where your life is. That's the life.
They're teaching you. It's kind of teaching you to save for a rainy day, that kind of attitude. But then what do you do on the rainy day because you're so fucking scared?
Exactly. I talked to somebody today who he's not in HubSpot. He's in a different tech big giant company in Dublin. And I was talking to him, and all the tech stock has gone through the roof since COVID. And he's sitting on a huge amount of cash that he never thought that he would ever have, because he has a decent job, but he's not in sales or anything like that. So there's no kind of mad commission upside coming his way. So he's just got this this load of shares that he's sitting on, and he's like, now he worries. He says he worries about it going down all the time now. Like he's not spending it, so he's not better off, but he just looks at it all day, going up and down. Just it's so it's kind of and if that's not for anything. I had this idea, maybe we can run this idea by it. This is kind of a little bit off topic, but I was thinking about how to train children to think about money, right? And I had this idea. You've got a couple of kids, my nieces. So imagine if you had
names.
Yeah. Those little girls over there live in your house. If you said to them, they're when they're teenagers, you want them to have nice things or go on, holidays, holiday or whatever, right? You want them to be able to spend money. Everyone just gives them money. What if you said you can have as much money as you want if you start a business, and then you'll be able to spend the profits? I won't have any say in what you do with it. But what if I said to you, okay, you want to go on holidays next year with your friends, you're 17 or something, you're going to need €1,000. Okay, how can you make a business that makes €1,000? I'll give you everything you need to set up. I'll give you every penny, but you're not allowed to spend any of that. Imagine giving them that type of a mind
Yeah.
where it's like, what do you think about it? I think I think
You're
it's a good.
given this this seed capital to make money, as
Exactly.
opposed to, well, the old way of doing that is get go get a job, you know,
Yeah.
because if essentially children couldn't start businesses until the internet came along. You know, they couldn't really, but you can actually have, like, the kids design like t-shirts and stuff for me. Leila's learned Photoshop. She's actually really good at it. And designing she knows what the kids want, like, and all these gamers and stuff. And she's like, hey, has any sold yet? And you know, so she
This is exactly what I'm talking about. So
mm,
she's a little bit young, but maybe when they're like 13, 14, 15, say, okay, say if my son, if he's like 14, I'll be like, okay, I want you I want you to think big as well. I don't want you to just say, oh, I'm selling lemonade. I want you to think big. I want you to say, I want you to go source how much a tennis machine that, shoots out the tennis ball for practice. I want you to set up like a tennis court thing. I want you to set up a real business. And then you can keep the money forever. I've never asked for the money back, but you can only spend the profit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But when I was a kid, it was like, you have to get a job, like, wait till you get a job and then you can earn money. It was never really like, how can you actually start your own business? How can you earn money now? What can you do to get money, as opposed to just getting a job? Like, when we came back from the holiday, we had a little holiday recently, and then did I send you a picture of them selling stuff outside in the garden?
No.
Did I say that they'd set up a shop in the garden? Because I told them they wanted to go on another holiday straight away, of course. And I said, well, if you have the money, we can go, you know. And they're like selling off all toys and selling face masks, buying it in bulk and trying to sell them individually. Now, the problem was that there was no footfall.
Yeah.
It was like a rainy day.
Retail is tough these days.
Yeah. So I said to Leila, what did you learn at the end of it? And she goes, location. Oh, what do you mean? She goes, yeah, there's nobody here. We need to go where people are. I said, yes, that's exactly what I wanted you to say. But you can't, because you're only 8.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But these guys are going to be absolute powerhouses, which is great. The Dreamline thing just ends with steps that you, after you do your Dreamline, to figure out what your target monthly income is. You take steps now, so you have to take a step to do everything. So if you want to learn Greek, you have to find somebody to book in a class online on italki.com or whatever. Speak to a Greek person. You have to have stuff to do tomorrow and the day after. So you get a little bit of that momentum. That's the big thing. I've often made plans. I've also like strategies, stuff like that. And then they've like really detailed business plans, stuff like that. And then I close over my my A4 pad, place it up there in my. I actually got an area where I keep all my business ideas.
Your dreams.
Just put my dreams on the shelf and then keep moving. So, but I kind of congratulate myself on a good job for that, and then get on with the day.
And then you call me to action it.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, we got to put some hustle behind this. You know what? Okay,
you're afraid to tell me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll make you do it. No, but in saying that, you do. There are some things you put in the long finger, and there's some things you actually go all in with, like Iron Man, like learning Irish. You know, they're examples of dreamlines, aren't they?
Yeah, and like I do a good job in work and stuff like that, but it's the stuff that is because I've been, I don't know, this is something that I'm trying to talk about, getting the kids to kind of take action with money. I'm kind of the guy who's a little bit now, when money comes in, I'm just kind of saving, rather than what I should be doing is taking all that money and getting used to risking a lot more. So say, well, here's my Dreamline. This is all the money I need. Everything else is for speculative stuff. That's what it should be. And that's what we need to kind of get the kids to gamble more a little bit when they're growing up. So they say, okay, any money that here would be a really, really, it would be a very good way of teaching kids. Say, okay, when you go work in Woodies or whatever, every penny you earn, you give it to me. We'll put it in some sort of risk asset or investment or something like that, and you get to spend whatever you make off that. But you can't spend what you earn. It has to come out of. That's what Grant Cardone does. He didn't spend any of the money he made from like speaking gigs. I don't know if he was. It could be full of shit. But let's say his theory was he only spends money that comes out of his real estate stuff. So he calls it staying broke. So all the money that comes in, that's excess, that's not going directly on bills, he puts in a pot for storage, and then he just tries to do something big with all the money that he makes extra.
Yeah, a lot of people try to do that, but I've tried to do that as well, having different income streams, not at the level of Grant Cardone, but like trying to say, right, I'll live off the artwork or something like that, or I'll live off one element. And the problem is there's often not enough of that of that stream. So that's obviously the elephant in the room but there's different ways you can attack that as well, but easier said than done.
Absolutely. So moving right along, that's the kind of the definition out of the DEAL acronym. The next part is the elimination. So this is about all the stuff in life that just piles on. A lot of people that are listening out there today will be going to work, getting up early, going to work. Maybe not right now because they're not commuting, but let's remember that when people were doing the commute every day, 2 hours a day, 2.5 hours, easy, they get to work, they've got a mountain of email. Now you've got Slack. I came back the other day, I had like 30 something Slack messages. They're all in bold red as well. It's very, it's done on purpose to make sure that you're as stressed as possible. And then you've got all these meetings. My meeting link is out there. People are booking time in the calendar, all that type of stuff, So elimination is all about looking at your life and trying to take out as much stuff that you don't enjoy doing that doesn't add a lot of value, and outsource that or eliminate it completely. So like the outsourcing part is really interesting, and it was in its infancy back then in 2007, but now it's a full industry. Actually, not in the job that I have right now, but in a previous job in HubSpot, I approached my manager and asked him, could I outsource just as an experiment to somebody in India to do a certain part of the job? And then they said no, but they liked where I was coming from. But it's just because there was a lot of kind of like data involved. Anyway, my point is, you can go directly to these companies in India. India is actually a little bit expensive. I was looking at places in Bangladesh and stuff like that can outsource the annoying things in your life that you don't really like doing, so you have more time to yourself, or just eliminate the stuff that doesn't give you any ROI. Is there, now that you're your own boss, you're running a company, is there stuff in your life that you could eliminate, do you think? Or that you'd like to? Well,
you can eliminate the obvious things, like time, anything that's wasting time, like looking at the media, looking at Twitter. Social media basically is probably the biggest waste of time in my life, and I don't even use it that much. But I do. I use it, and that's the problem. I have to go on it to put stuff out. But in doing that, you get caught. Something catches your eye, and then you go down a rabbit hole. I'm not too bad at it, but it's distracting, and then you forget what you went on. Then I often forget, like I forgot I had to post this because I've just gone down a rabbit hole because it knows what I want to see, especially Instagram. So yeah, I think you can consciously do that. Outsourcing. Well, I definitely followed the outsourcing thing. I was selling, like with the art, for example, so I was selling prints, and I'd frame the prints and I'd post them out. So then I just said no, it was having to go to framers, get stuff framed, wasn't making any particular margin on the frames. Yeah, they look great, and then it costs more to post them out. So I was like, right, cut out the framing, they can do their own frames, sell them in tubes, and then I get the printer to send them out for me. So kind of outsourced the prints, and then when I found out print on demand, then with t-shirts and stuff like that, that's all completely outsourced as well. I barely even check my website. I just get emails telling me what's happening.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's so Matthew McConaughey mailbox money. That's what we're trying to generate here on the SharkPod. So actually, you're really taking that kind of automation piece here. A lot of people, I would venture, a lot of people are worried about automation. Then, if you're not in an equity position, if you're not the owner of what's being sold, it's a threat.
I think creatives will hopefully have more power and more earning power in the future. I think creatives are undervalued.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, but creative can be anything. Like, but if you can create something and then use automation where you don't have to, there's no middleman. Well, then that's only a good thing. And if you're worried about if you're worried about your job, losing your job to automation, you're probably thinking too small. You're probably in the wrong. You should probably upskilling. Really.
Yeah, like the way you're really dancing around there. You gotta, start making moves.
Yeah,
If that's the case. Like,
it's a ticking time bomb.
and it's a lot of people in Ireland as well. It's a lot of the mindset is a kind of fixed mindset as well. It's like, I'm an accountant. This is what I do. They kind of self-identify what they do instead of having shooting for equity. That's what my whole thing. I want as much shares of companies as possible.
Your main thought should be adding value, like monetary value, indirectly or directly. And the modern accountant has a commercial aspect to their role generally.
Yeah.
The ones that don't, they're at risk of the finance function that they're in being outsourced to somewhere cheaper.
Yeah.
But that's been away for a while, but people are just copping onto a bit more. And the outsourced functions in the likes of India, or different countries in Europe, they're getting better. Because I know finance functions of big companies that were outsourced, and they took them back because it was just messy. It's too messy.
Yeah. I think that it is something to with technology as well. We talked about it before, but there's a reason why they're paying software engineers in Silicon Valley $400,000 a year instead of paying somebody in Bangladesh $100,000. Do you know what I mean? To do something. There's reasons for this, but I think that's narrowing as we get closer with the COVID and stuff like that. I worry about that. I think that our standard of living maybe not, but it could be in jeopardy because of cheap access to cheap markets. Because I know if I had a big company, I'd be looking to be as profitable as possible, and if that means paying a lot less and not having to worry about government regulations changing and stuff like that for employees, I can see where they're coming from. Do you know, that type of way.
I look at the end of the day in our lifetime, I think we're going to be all right. We're not as young as we think. Our life isn't as long as we think it is.
Yeah.
I know the rate of is it Moore's law is it's pretty impressive, and things will completely change in every 10 years. But people are all, like, jobs are still going to be around. The robots aren't going to be taken over in our lifetime, I don't think.
And if they do, we'll all be working for 4 hours a week and we'll be sorted out. And one of the things that he comes into after that is at the end of time management. So time management is how to get the most out of your day. And he talks about Pareto's law, which is
80-20.
80-20, made popular by my boy Richard Koch.
That's an unfortunate name.
It's like Dick Koch. Come on. Coke. No, it says it's Koch. Anyway, he wrote a book, 80-20 Rule. Great book for business. One of the best books you could read. Talk about reading a book and then putting it right back on the shelf and never looking at it again. 80-20. It's such a great concept. If you look at your day, this is really where you can chop down your day to 4 hours a day. I'd be happy with 4 hours a day rather than 4 hours a week even, right? Right now I'm working 10 hours a day. And I'm never out of things to do. Do you like it, right? So it kind of expands with the amount of time that you have. Tim Ferriss talks about in the book, have you ever been on a deadline for a college paper and you've got 12 hours? And guess what? He came up with 6,000 words.
Yeah.
No?
That's Parkinson's law though, isn't it?
Is it?
That's
a different law.
That's the next one. That's if you allot a certain amount of time to something, you'll fill that time either one way or the other. You know what I mean? Like if it's shorter or longer. I think that's pretty. I think that's in the same chapter. But Pareto's law is like what 20% of your problems are causing you. What 20%? Are causing 80% of your problems. Or that's it. Or vice versa. Yeah, or what? To be more positive, the 20% of your actions create 80% of the results, right? So cold calling 800
or cold calling like 100 leads that are completely unqualified versus only dealing with people who know your brand and want to talk to you. Obviously, you'll find some gems in the cold calling thing. Plus, you'll have some excitement. I quite like the cold calling element. I actually have fun with that, which is a sickness that people, you know. I love it. I just think it's fun.
No, but there is going to be different things that pop up during those kind of broadening the net wide and everything that you do, which just takes a lot of hours. But stuff does come out of it.
But his point here is that worth it? So you won't get 100% if you only do the 20% of actions, but you'll get 80% of the results, and that's where the money is. But especially if you're an employee, that's a tough one to sell to employers. If I was running a sales team as a CEO, and they were saying, "Oh, sure, only get 20%, or get only an extra 20% out of cold calling all day," I'm like, "Well, you better get the phone."
Yeah.
No, so it's a hard one. So I think that's more applicable if you are the owner of a company and you want to or if you're like an executive who wants to maximize the time allocation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
or it leaves you room if you cut out 80% of companies that your clients that actually aren't giving you they're giving you grief or stuff like that. If you cut them, well, then you can add more. It makes you focus on adding more in.
Absolutely. So it's like firing your worst customers. And that's what he actually does in the book as well. So he applies this rule to his own kind of install base of customers where he's delivering these food supplements for his business. And he said about 20% of his customers caused way more than 80% of the complaints, late payments, all that type of stuff. So he sent like an automated message to them when they emailed him saying that they can have their money back, and he doesn't want to do business with them anymore. A few of them, sent ranting emails to him. A few of them said, "Actually, it's okay, don't worry," and they became good customers. So he cut off 20% of his revenue, but he freed up almost all of his time. Could you imagine? In modern business, you tell your shareholders, "I'm going to cut 20% of our income because I don't like the guys. They're whinge bags."
Yeah,
I like it. Again, it's a tough one, but I see where he's coming from. There is such thing as a bad customer. Where
definitely, but it's not just business; it applies to all sorts of things.
It could be
20. If we're talking about maximum output from minimum input, that's what it's all based on, really.
I think the Ironman training is a good conduit for that as well, because I'd say 80% of the mental gains that happened when you first hit those kind of 90K, 21K run. Like when you hit those milestones where your body's capable of doing that. I'm only hitting those maybe 20% of the time, but that's really that's giving me such a boost that was worth a lot of little 5Ks that you do. That's what my opinion. So it is kind of interesting that way. So if you sat down and did an 80-20 analysis of your quarter, I'm sure that you'd be illuminating. But also, I find it kind of disempowering as well, because I'm like, well, I was trying so hard. It's an interesting one to apply to. I think the good thing about the 80-20 rule is that you can apply it to pretty much anything in anyone's life or circumstances.
It's good. It's probably a good thing to learn, or to put a bit more thought into and have it in the back of your head.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. So now that you have you've defined the life that you want to have, which almost nobody does, I would venture. You would start to eliminate the stuff that annoys you in a smart way, so it doesn't affect you negatively. Some of that stuff might be, like he suggests, checking your emails twice a day. I was doing that with Slack for a while, and then one of my friends called me a C word. So I thought I was giving the wrong impression. I don't think Slack was ready for that type of thing, because that's supposed to be like instant messaging. I put my Slack saying, "I'll check my Slack at 4." That was what I said. Because but then
it depends what business you're in. If you're in any kind of sales environment, multiple things happen in my day over email.
Yeah,
that have a real impact.
If you're just doing a creative thing where you're you spend, okay, Mondays is when I do my marketing campaigns where I kind of come up with them and that type of stuff. Maybe that's okay to say, I'll check that once a day.
Yeah.
But I kind of like hitting refresh and seeing if anything has happened with any of the deals I'm working on. Do you know, again, it's part of the fun for me.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. Maybe personal emails are probably worth checking twice a day.
Yeah. Or less. It's mostly junk anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the next part is automation. So this is all about putting your income on autopilot. How does that feel? How does that sound like?
What do you mean?
Sound like fun? Sorry, Mark was taking a sip of his My Waddy there. He almost burst off. Anyway, so my point is the next section is all about finding a way to make that target income for the month, monthly target income, and it is all about testing out. So the first, he calls it the muse. The muse is the business that you create that generates income. Then he talks about how to test it before you actually make the leap. And then the building in the management by absence. And this is something that he talks about in depth about how he gave birth to this business, but it had a birth defect that no one would ever buy it because he's the person, he actually is the business doing everything. So he wasn't able to sell it for nearly as much as it could have been if from the beginning he was just figuring out should he hire a CEO in year 2 to run the business, that type of thing. Have you ever, like, now that you are I know we're skipping ahead here, but now that you are a business owner, would you, like, did that ever cross your mind in the first year saying, no, next year I'll get a CEO in to run this and I'll just be a shareholder?
I don't think that would be allowed, Luke. It kind of is my role. You have to, I think the start of any business, you got it 5 years before you start dishing out CEO titles.
Okay. Well, so the first thing is about coming up with the muse. So he talks about figuring out how to brainstorm for business ideas, stuff like that. Some of the stuff he used, or some of the examples he uses are really good. They're like looking at trade magazines and stuff that don't really exist anymore. But some of the stuff like testing AdWords and stuff like that for your business, I think that still holds up. If you've got a little business and you want to set up a landing page with pictures of the product or the service or whatever, and try to get people to give you money for it, don't even have a merchant account set up, but get them to try to convert and then send them, say, hey, we're not actually ready. Sorry about that. But we'll get you back when we have more stock or whatever.
Yeah, but it doesn't he try to find the pain points first, the problems, and then come up with the solution, as opposed to building a product and trying to sell it to people who may or may not want it.
Exactly. And back then he didn't even, well, it might have been around then, but there's in America, it's very popular. It could be popular here too. I might just be out of the loop, but Reddit.
Yeah.
There's people who make businesses out of Reddit. So they go in and look at what people are whinging about.
Yeah.
Business about that.
That's the equivalent of, looking at trade magazines or, and our boards.ie or, any of those. The most negative place in the world. But
yeah, I know what you're talking about though. I was on I was doing some research on the old competitor there, Salesforce, on a certain deal that I was looking at, and I kind of found myself lost in a rabbit hole of board-like questions, where people were having discussions about stuff that was missing from the platform. And I was just like, if you were smart and had 20 grand, you could build an app for this. And the opportunities are endless for that. You can see that there's at least 20 people who are whinging about this. And that's only people who whinge about things. That's the crust of the problem.
Yeah.
Like, how many bad reviews have you given of a restaurant? You just say, I just won't go there again.
Yeah.
I've given a couple of bad reviews lately over lockdown. I think. Really? It was all charged up. I've since deleted it.
Because you're hungry, probably.
Yeah, exactly. I was just kind of like, that wasn't big enough. Anyway, so, but my point is finding what's going to generate that income for you. So a lot of people, when they think about businesses, they think about starting the next Facebook. You got to be like Zuckerberg or something. When in reality, like we were talking to our friend Mark Flood, the private equity guy, he was saying that there's a lot of businesses in Ireland that are making $1 million or €1 million in profit a year or EBITDA a year, and you'd never hear of them. They're real boring industries. Chuck it away. So it's something, especially in tech, where all the people that leave to start their businesses are doing the moonshot thing, where they go, "Oh, I need 800 grand seed money."
Yeah.
What about
A boring business probably is the safest thing to do. You know, there's less risk involved. You know, something sells.
Yeah.
But look, there's lots of things out there that haven't been invented as well. But like, I think the whole point of Tim Ferriss kind of setting up the landing page and seeing if it's actually see if the product is actually going to get sales before you actually put a lot of effort into something and make this baby, and then all of a sudden, you know, nobody wants your baby.
It's interesting because exactly. So people go, "Oh, I love to make pizza, so I'm going to make pizza," and then there might be lots of pizza already available that's going to be way better than you can make. Do you know what I mean? So I know what you mean. The testing is going to be something that you should really look at, as well as the kind of exit strategy from the beginning, or how this can be managed without your input. So stuff like nowadays, there's even more opportunities. There's information products. There's Udemy courses that you could set up. There's audiobook. If you're good at reading, you can read audiobooks for people. Like do a recording for that. There's all these kind of gigs that you can do that when you can just go to a landing page and buy. You don't have to do the actual service. It's kind of a catch-22, because with services, even like IT services, like you can make a lot of money doing the service part, but you can also just be like MailChimp, who you just buy online, no big commitment on the sale or the service. It's just you buy it, you use it, you churn. We don't care. There's lots of people out there. Really cheap, lightweight software that doesn't need sales people. It's great. You know?
I think another big element of that business is the fact that it can be maintained anywhere in the world.
Yes, exactly. I think that's a really good point as well, especially once things get back to a little bit normal where people can travel around. There's also, so there's the last bit here, because we're almost at an hour mark. We are terrible at talking. It's like sometimes when I'm with a guest, I'm like, we're at 45 minutes. I'm like, so what's the weather like out there? Yeah. I mean, come on, you know. But I'm looking at the clock and I'm trying to make it an hour at least, you know. But we've been talking for an hour anyway. So we're on the last part here.
In a podcast about like optimizing time.
Exactly. So the last piece here is liberation, right? So how to escape the office. He talks about how to negotiate a remote working thing. Now's the time to do that. Anyone out there who's taking the foot off the gas, working from home, you better don't waste this opportunity. Be more productive. Show your work. Always, like, if you're in a business and you can't show your work, it's difficult. It's going to be difficult for you to maintain that remote working. Do you know what I mean? If I don't know what you're doing. So make sure.
Look, there's software that enables that to show what people are actually doing. But I think you should use, if that, not everyone has that software yet, so you should be using your initiative and giving, you know, every updates in the morning, midday, and in the evening. If you don't, and you could have worked your ass off all day, depends on what you're in, and you could have little or no results. Yeah, we might see those results in 2 days' time, but I'm going to be wondering, what's he been doing for the last 2 days?
Yeah. And I think it's a little bit different if you're running a project, or you're like, what I do, it would be hard to measure like the amount of hours. I'm always thinking about it. I'm always making improvements. Do you know what I mean? It's not it's not kind of a high activity job. It's very much like strategic, working on kind of bigger deals and stuff like that. A lot of kind of like, I don't know what you call it, discovery. You know, I'm trying to figure out kind of how things work together, different software systems, how they connect and all that type of stuff. But I know what you mean. For those, if you're in a job where you're not running the project, so there's not going to be an end outcome that you can stand over, you've got to make sure that you're communicating so you can get this liberation here. So the next part of that is killing.
Like most of that chapter, or that, you know, that bit of the book is actually about trying to figure out how to convince your boss to give you 1, 2, 3 days from home. Yeah, it's you know, it's handed to you. You can't come into work.
it's fabulous. So,
but you will be back. That's the problem. You know, not the problem, but that will happen. People will get back at some stage. You know, most people to an extent.
I think the smaller the company, the quicker they'll be back. That's what I was thinking the other day. I went into the office for the first time since March to get something yesterday, and it was really empty. All that type of stuff was very kind of post-apocalyptic around the IFSC. There's nothing going on, except for lads sitting there on the wall, lashing the rain, drinking Linden Village.
Nice.
Hands there, and I was like, you know, I got stuff to worry about. I can't do that right now.
Maybe they implemented the 4-hour work week.
Yeah, exactly. They're killing the game. So anyway, my point is, if you're in a smaller business, say if I've got a sales team and it's my business, I started an insurance brokerage and I've got 15 people on the phones for me. I want to see you at work because I still feel like that money's coming out of my pocket. I want to see you there. I don't want to see you kind of working, kind of narcos on your second screen. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I want you to be doing the job. Yeah. So I think they'll be back first. There's kind of smaller companies where the owner is still kind of involved. But those type of big corporate companies, there's a lot of different structures there. It suits managers not to go into work as well. You know, everyone's kind of in on it in a certain way. And places like with technology, the way it is now, we've never been more, my job, prolific, you know, as a company. So it does work. It can work, but it's not going to work for everybody. And I think most people will be back in the offices quicker than they think that they're going to be. My opinion. So the last part of that is liberation. So it talks about killing your job. So actually planning from 6 months from now, I'm not going to be working there anymore. I'm going to be completely living off the muse that I've built, the small business on the side that I've built, the side hustle, if you will. And then the last part of that is filling the void, right? Which is, okay, now that you're the only one not working, all your friends are working, all they want to talk about is work. I don't know if you've noticed that. A lot of people that I, high achievers that I hang out with, we go out for dinner or a reasonable price meal or whatever right now. And it's just work. So imagine if you don't have any work to do. What would you think about all day?
Me? Well, I'm unique in that I have the art. I'd just be creating huge paintings and just doing loads of creative stuff. But I think a lot of people would turn to creativity and travel. Creativity, travel. You could say, spending time with your family, but look, we've all been in lockdown, and there's only so much time people can just spend talking to each other. Like, there's like you have to do something else together. Fair enough, but I would put it down to creativity and travel, and if you can combine them, happy days. What would you say?
I don't know. Like in my 20s, I really thought that the travel thing was the most important thing, and it was at the time. And I did it. I think I went to like 40 countries or something. So I've seen a lot of stuff. Long-term travel can be really like a really nice feeling. It's real disconnected. It takes kind of a month for that to happen, and then you realize you don't have any bills, you don't have any. There's not like all you realize how cheaply you can live. Like you can get down to spending like €15 a day living on a beach.
Yeah, but in the back of my head would have always been that you got to come back to real life at some stage.
So in the back of my head was like, I'm going to start a beach bar here. If these guys are sleeping, I'm going to come in and fucking really...
How many people think that, and how many people actually do it?
I seen actually, the problem is I'd be in Thailand and I'd be looking at the guys who never went home. I'm like, I don't know if that's what I want to be like.
Yeah.
The 50-year-old guys with the dreadlocks, chasing after young ones.
Yeah. No, but if the argument is then if you've implemented the 4-hour work week, you should be able to have that feeling of being detached when you want to be detached, and not have that, hanging over your head, that guilt, so you can actually enjoy the moment.
I've always kind of fantasized about having 2 months off when my wife, who's a teacher, has 2 months off in the summer, taking that time off and doing something with the family that we will produce one day, Yeah. I think that's very achievable. But it's something I've been thinking about lately, is more the way the Japanese think about their lives, and they make 100-year plans, right? It's very mind-opening because you say, okay, if I'm starting a business, and I want it to last for 100 years. How would I do that? It's kind of going against the 4-hour work week, but I think building stuff is going to be fun. I think that's probably. I just don't. So there's only so much travel that you can do before you're the oldest guy in the hostel.
Yeah. Why are you imagining travel to be like when you were, 18, 19?
I don't know.
That's the difference, because that's the argument is that's the problem is that's the only time you get to do all that until you retire, and that's why all the mini retirements are encouraged, or just living a life arbitrage where you get to live in another country. You get paid euros from your internet business, and you get to live in another country and get paid and spend whatever currency they spend.
You can take it to the next level, because we're in the EU. We can actually, quote unquote, live in Malta, have an internet business, and you don't pay tax on any money that you make from your business that comes from offshore. Imagine that. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? Imagine you wouldn't have to pay.
Is Malta on the green list?
I think it is on the green list.
Green for money.
Green for that's where we're going to be paying tax. But anyway, so it's something that as I got older, I know I'm not that old, I'm 31, but as I got older, the promises of traveling the world and having these interesting encounters with people and stuff like that, I still think that's valid, but I quite like having a base. I want to be a big impact person on the kind of community. Do you know, I think that's the dream now. Maybe, tell you what, maybe having 4-hour work week would give you a lot more time to do that. A lot more time to spend on stuff that you want to do. Maybe that's, it doesn't have to be like on the front cover, it's a guy in a hammock in between palm trees. You don't have to, there's other ways to spend the time. It's up to you. And I guess Filling the Void chapter kind of rounds that off,
Yeah, that wouldn't appeal to me. The hammock would get uncomfortable after a week, and then I think it's building things, giving back, being creative, and traveling, definitely. But like, you're in a lucky position where you've actually been to about 40 countries, but people actually who haven't done that much traveling have that in the back of their head, that when I retire, I'm going to go traveling. And like, maybe they're increasing the importance of that. Like, and how about you just travel all along, and then when you retire, there's other stuff.
There's a great book called Vagabonding that actually Tim Ferriss brings up, and he had him on his podcast. God, I forget his name now, the guy who wrote it, but it's the art of long-term travel, and it talks about not going on vacation, but having these kind of long-term travel experiences. Really interesting book. Great audiobook if you're looking for something from Audible. You can get you can get that book for free actually below. But the thing in that is that he talks about the clip from Wall Street where they ask him, a young Charlie Sheen, what would you do if you weren't doing the investment banking thing? He's like, you know what, once I make enough money, I'm gonna buy a motorbike, and I'm gonna drive across China. And then your man's like, you could do that with like $100. You don't need to be a retired millionaire to drive a, the whole thing. I like that. So maybe I'm, like you said, I'm in a privileged position because I've done 2 or 3 mini retirements since I read the book. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that was kind of enough for me, but it would be nice to be able to say, imagine if we had the freedom to say, okay, let's have a family holiday for everybody for December. We're gonna go get a chalet in, the Swiss Alps or something, or the whole month, and we don't have to worry about, right now we'd have to have a lot of ducks in a row to make that happen. That's all I'm saying, Mark.
Well, another problem is what everybody always says about like thinking about retiring and the pension and stuff is, what if you don't live that long? But hold on. The plan is to go traveling and stuff like that. Think about all the people who retired this year and their plans to go traveling. How are they going for them?
Oh my God, such a good point. It's something that Tim actually brings up a lot as well about you're not guaranteed any more time. So that's the Dreamline is for 6 months, 12 months. That's what we should be kind of always aiming for. The retirement, and actually I only really started saving for my retirement a couple of years ago because of that. and I always thought future Luke would have figured that out by now. That's what I'll be like, yeah, future Luke's going to be rich, so who cares?
Yeah.
I don't think this €113 that I'm putting in this month is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like, what are we going to do?
Future Luke has that covered.
Future Luke, go on. But then, maybe that would be the case. But it's I like the idea of doing things now. So maybe I need to have a rethink about maybe because it doesn't seem as attractive to me to do the 4-hour work week right now. Maybe it means that I'm quite enjoying the setup that I have.
Yeah.
And maybe this is for people who are very unhappy. But on the other hand, maybe I'm not thinking big enough. Maybe I'm not having enough goals or kind of dreams to chase after right now. Do you like it, right? So maybe it could be
I think, every 6 months or something, you should kind of recalibrate and see where you are and see what areas you need a bit more, I don't know, excitement in, because he says it's actually, you shouldn't be striving for happiness, because that'll get quite boring. It's actually strive for excitement.
I could not agree more. And when I read that, I really put everything in perspective for me, because I always have something in the future looking forward to, and if I don't, I get a little bit antsy, and
that's why people find a perpetual lockdown situation tough to handle.
100%. If they told us we got a lockdown for 2 years, I'm like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
But it's the not knowing that really puts it down for people. It's so it's something to think about. But even my biggest thing was when I was in the investment bank and I bought a property straight after college. When I first got that property, I was like, I was excited to get it, but then there was nothing after that. And I was about 23 or 24 or something, and I was living in there, and I was just like, oh my god, this is it now. I have nothing. And then that's when I put the kind of 4-hour work week mini retirement in place, and I got this. I was in my wife's house, and her brother had come back from traveling, and he had this kind of well thumbed South America on a shoestring Lonely Planet, and I took it. I just put it in my bag, and it was like 900 pages. I was thumbing through it, circling things, and that's when I really got excited about doing that. So went there for like 4 months or whatever.
You probably didn't link that directly to the 4-hour work week book, but I think it's a type of book that just changes your mindset, changes the way you think, and it's kind of in the back of your head all the time.
100%. And then you end up going to Buenos Aires and you're in a tango lesson and you're like, how the hell did I get here? And then you realize, oh yeah, Tim told me to do this.
He also practiced hurling as well when he was over in Ireland.
Yeah, he was living in the Gaeltacht in Galway, which is pretty interesting as well. He doesn't really dig into that in the book, which I was a little bit disappointed with. But anyway, so that's the book. Well, after Liberation, it kind of just ends with some really nice case studies of people who read the book and email them in. I don't know. You never know if those are real or they just kind of, him making them up. But if you go into his blog, there's hundreds of them. So
yeah, there's more likely to be ones, 2-3 years down the line rather than on the date the book is published.
Yeah, but well, in his defense, the 4-hour work week blog had been going on for like 3 years beforehand.
Oh yeah.
So he had actually something we can talk about later. If you're trying to launch something like this, building a following beforehand is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Joe?
And we now know him from the Tim Ferriss podcast, but at the time, there was no podcast. Podcasts weren't even big at the time.
No, this is 5 years before Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I'm sure there's actually other books who have honed that better and maybe updated it. But this is the kind of, as we said, it's more like the Bible.
Oh, too. I'm gonna commit to rereading that. It's so
I
good.
don't know why I tend to bring it on holidays all the time.
I bring it every holiday. This has been around.
You do that as well,
and I never read it really when I'm doing other things. But I've read it so many times. Do you know?
I'm reading it at 8 p.m. when everybody's gone to bed.
Yeah, I'm like
my holidays.
Yeah.
I brought this to Florida.
And you're like, it's the most international book. I got this book in the mail yesterday. I'm almost finished it. It's called the Sales Acceleration Formula. It was the guy who was the first sales hire in HubSpot and took the team from 0 to 100 million in recurring revenue. Really interesting book. If anyone ever wants to, and this is public knowledge now, but if I knew this book before I applied for HubSpot, it tells you exactly what they're looking for. and how they grade everything. And I'm like, I do the interviews. It's the same thing. But it's really interesting.
Really?
And he talks about like how they build it, how they incentivize people. And at one stage, they were giving $4 per $1 salespeople brought in commission when they're trying to scale. God be with the days. I missed the boat on that one. You know, we've been sitting here in a fancier house. Anyway,
on a bigger hill.
A bigger hill. Yeah, but it's really good if anyone wants to read that one. It's kind of like so that's the HubSpot one, and then there's another one by Aaron Ross who did the same thing at Salesforce. So it's nice to read them both and see what the things are. But my point is the sales acceleration formula. It's kind of, I actually don't like the title. So it's kind of like the 4-hour work week. Sometimes titles are a bit that's real cheesy, I think.
Yeah,
it's not a formula. It's advice. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if a book is good enough, it'll get past its name. You know what I mean? The title, like the 4-hour work week, not a great title, but in a way, it is.
Yeah, in a way, exactly. But the point is why I'm enjoying this book and why it's kind of like the 4-hour work week is he really digs into how to manipulate like a sales organization to basically do whatever you want the company to do. It's like how you tweak little incentives for salespeople and just watch change overnight. Really, really interesting.
Well,
and from experience,
salespeople are human, and human behavior is predictable. So
exactly. So it's a really interesting book. So I'd recommend that one as well. But my point is it really does it opens your mind as well. Because I know from experience, because I've worked in these teams. But for those people who have never worked in like proper organized sales teams, the power of a proper sales team is so effective. Like if you can just have a decent product with a market that's growing, and you put in good salespeople, watch the company explode. Do you know what I mean? It's really, really interesting. So opens your mind to say, okay, all I have to do is basically figure out a decent muse in this case, hire some salespeople and let them get after it. You know, pay them really well, and they'll. Anyway, that's I think that's it for today. We're 1 hour 16. The 4-hour work week. We couldn't recommend it enough. I think. Was it get 3 thumbs up, Mark? What's your
3?
What do you give it out of 10?
Out of 10. For impact wise, for me, I'd have to give it a 9 out of 10.
It's pretty high.
10 out of 10. I don't think I've ever given a book 10 out of 10. Put it that way. So, yeah.
I would have said, yeah. So I'm probably saying about 9 out of 10, but he would have got 10 out of 10 if he just released. I'd love a follow-up. Do you know what I mean? I want to know what the tools, the websites and stuff that he would do now. I mean, there's a lot more testing he could do, a lot more analytics he could use. I just think
he probably wouldn't do it because there's probably other people doing it as well. It wouldn't be as unique anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I read another one called Life Leverage. It was just a poor man's Timothy Ferriss. It was basically the same thing.
Regurgitating it.
Just kind of outsourcing thing. Anyway, so let's leave it there for today. Thanks very much, Mark. We've got a few more guests that will be coming online over the next couple of weeks. But it was important for us to have a chat about a book that really impacted us. People, if you're going to get the book, I think it's like €12. It is a steal for €12 for what it can give you. That is it's a asymmetrical, yeah, asymmetrical return on your money, and it might be something really good if you're looking for a way to kind of figure out how much money you'll actually need for the lifestyle that you want. Because there's not a big difference between earning 90K and 100K lifestyle wise, but it might cost you a lot to take a new job for an extra 10 grand. Do you know away? So
it's all about relative income is how he defines it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So if you're making 100 grand, you're living in Botswana, you're doing well. Do you know what I mean? And Greg, not so much apparently.
The king.
Right down the road here with 2 Range Rovers. I don't think you need them. He's the only one who drives them. I've seen him and watching. Anyway, right, let's leave it there for today. Cheers.
Thanks, Emil.